All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are y'all doing this morning? Good, okay. Y'all awake? Really quick, what time is it? So we had some a little mix up on the time. So we're still having some of the panel members make their way to the chairs. But before that, I just wanted to do a quick little, so a couple of announcements. God, that's weird.
That's better.
Is that me doing that? Oh, sorry. Okay. Anyway, I thought it was me. The first announcement is that we have our awards luncheon today right at noon, I believe, or if not, it's 12:15. It's either noon or 12:15. But either way, make your way down to the first floor. It's the Constellation Ballroom. And you know, the work that you all do is so hard. The work that we do is very, very hard. So we do like to take those moments to just celebrate the great work that's happening. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a nice lunch and celebrate all the great work that's happening across the state. So we look forward to seeing y'all there today at noon. And then I wanted to welcome the virtual members. I forgot to do that yesterday. I'm so sorry, but we do have virtual members. So we have you all here in person, and we also have virtual members that are across the state. And I think there are some across the country. So welcome virtual members. We're excited that y'all are here. If y'all have any questions, do them in the chat and somebody will get it to us if we need to answer some questions. So before we before we get started, let's just see who's all here and it'll kind of wake everybody up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go first by big city. And then after that, I'm going to do regions of Texas. So we're going to see who's kind of the loudest or who's most in the audience. And so online, what you can do is just either put the heart up or the thumbs up, and then we can see it light up. Just to see who's around. So I'm going to first start. If you are from, and it's always a hard one because it's not as loud, but if you are from in and around the Houston area. Yeah. Whoa. All right. We got a lot of you here. Okay. How about in and around the DFW area, Dallas? Okay. How about Austin, Texas area? How about El Paso? Maybe online. Maybe they're online. Okay, so for my rural folks, which is me, who is from, Harlingen? Anybody from Harlingen? How about South Texas as a whole? Central Texas, so like in and around Austin. Williamson County, okay. Bell County. How about East Texas? Yay. I got two of y'all here. Okay. How about Panhandle? Oh, look at y'all. Small but mighty. I see y'all. Yay. How about, let's see, Panhandle, East, West. So like Alpine, all that. All right. Okay, good. So we do have the state represented. I'm excited to hear about that. All right. And that, I see Lavinia. There's Lavinia. She's gonna make a grand entrance. There's Lavinia. Everybody clap for Lavinia as she's coming up. All right. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and get started. So we're very excited today to share with you about our Speak Up, Speak Out campaign that started 20 years ago. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand the microphone back over to Laura, our communications manager, and then she'll hand it back to me, and then we'll go on with the panel. So I will move out of her way.
Testing. Okay, you can hear me. 20 years ago, TASA received a sizable grant from then Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott to develop a statewide campaign to increase awareness about sexual assault. The campaign was a first of its kind. It featured real-life survivors who were brave enough to spread a message so simple it required just 4 words: speak up, speak out. But 20 years ago, speaking out about an assault was not what it is today. Speak Up, Speak Out helped eliminate the stigma that surrounds rape. It opened doors, helped countless survivors, and served as a national model for combating sexual assault and encouraging survivors to come forward and seek help. I'm honored to stand here today to introduce 5 of the survivors who participated in TASA's Speak Up, Speak Out campaign. On a personal note, I'm grateful to stand here today as TASA's communications manager. You see, 20 years ago, I was working at a large public relations firm in Austin, and we were hired by TASA to develop the Speak Up, Speak Out campaign. TASA quickly became my primary client, and I worked closely with a small team of TASA staff and the very first 6 survivors to share their stories. 2 of them are here today. There were billboard and television ads, public radio announcements, PSAs. We worked to publish stories with print media about the importance of speaking up. We collaborated with colleges and universities across Texas to bring survivors to college campuses, a place where we know 1 in 5 women will experience sexual assault. We focused heavily on freshman assemblies, as those first few months of college are when risk of sexual assault is at its highest. There is much about the movement that has changed over the last 20 years. 20 years ago, we shifted language. When I first started working with TASA, we said victim. Today, we say survivor. Our language, like the movement itself, is constantly evolving to be more inclusive and accessible, to ensure that all Texans are heard, or at least given the opportunity to speak. And on the other hand, some things about the movement have not changed. 20 years ago, sexual assault was severely underreported and justice for survivors was rare. That's still true today. One of the first survivors of the campaign, Bridget Kelly, who is not here today, said in an interview in 2004 that she, and I quote, hoped the campaign would change the way the media covers rape and that the subject will no longer be taboo. There's no doubt that the work of these survivors initiated dialogue, created awareness, and provided a space and permission for others to identify with. Their bravery and willingness to speak out has paved the way for those of us here today. Thank you, Jorge, Lavinia, Maggie, Gina, and Peter Gay, for your voices, for your truths, for the work you did then and now to touch survivors across the state, and for being with us to share your stories today. And now I hand it back to Rose.
Thank you, Laura. It was so excited when Laura came back to do some work for TASA and we found out that she was a part of the original Speak Up, Speak Out campaign. It was just like you came back home, Laura. So I'll say this, y'all, about 20 years ago now, it'll be 20 years. Man, I'm old. It's when I started at TASA. God, just thought that just hit me. But I remember it was like between my first month or so, I think when I started, there was like the TASA conference. It was at the Omni. I guess we like Omnis because we're at the Omni now. Another thing that just hit me. We're at the Omni Hotel downtown Austin. And I remember, so I'm new to the movement, new because I'm from rural Texas. I told y'all that before, I always say it. I got a business degree from Texas A&M. So I'm not, I didn't grow up, in all that. I grew up in a blue collar family. So, we didn't really talk about, that kind of stuff. We just didn't. So I'm being exposed to all of this. And I was hired on at TASA to do like the business side of things, contracts, things like that. Immediately fell in love with advocates and just the passion. But so when I got there, one of the first month, I walked into it was a room just like this. And I saw there was like a really important state official there. That was back when I didn't pay attention really to like who's what. I will admit that. And I was like, oh, this guy's the attorney general. This is Greg Abbott. Wow, he's here. And then I remember seeing Maggie there, and I remember seeing Gina and Bridget and all of them. And I didn't know their names at that time, but I was so enthralled by their presence and just by the room and everyone just really excited about this public awareness campaign that we can finally put out there in the state that it had not been done before. And I'm a marketing major, so I was like, wow, this is really, really interesting. But I have to say, like, that was very profound for me. And I think that what that did, as Laura mentioned, it was the first of its kind in our state. I'm not sure about the country, but I do know a lot of other coalitions then came to TASA and talked to our then communications manager, Chris Lippincott, like, how did y'all do this? Can you tell us a little bit more about how this worked? But I'll say again, as I mentioned, when, growing up in small town, like all we knew was football. And then I went to A&M, it's like football, and all we cared about was beating UT, and we did back then. And so And I remember, like, as a college student, a younger person, we didn't say the word sexual assault. We all kind of protected each other. We would do things like, that don't feel right, or, that person's a little weird or creepy or something. Or I'll watch your drink. Go ahead and go to that. We did risk reduction and we didn't even know what it was called, right? That was happening, but we didn't really talk about it. I didn't really talk about it. Again, I'm just being completely honest. And so then when I came that fateful day to work at TASA, and then I came to that conference and I saw everybody on the stage, and I saw then Attorney General Greg Abbott talking about this issue, I thought, wow, it was just very profound to me. And so I took that back to my family, who's blue collar, didn't really talk about this issue. And I showed them the videos, and they asked really good questions. And I think that's how most people are. They genuinely care, but sometimes don't have the language. And I think that the Speak Up, Speak Out campaign opened up an opportunity for people to ask questions. It gave them language, because we all do care. And I think if we were to do a poll, I would hope 100% of people in Texas would say rape is bad. We don't want that here. But when it happens and survivors come forward, what's the first response? What were you thinking? What were you wearing? Are you sure this happened? That person seems like a good person. What do you mean? So that's the response. So there's a disconnect between, we don't want rape here, but then how do we treat survivors of sexual assault? So I feel like the public awareness campaign, the Speak Up, Speak Out, was a way to try to begin to bridge those misunderstandings, to bridge that societal, collective understanding. It was a way to questions pointed toward the nuances that are so important, but are so often missed when we're talking about this issue. When it comes to the general public, us here, we get it. We talk about it to each other all the time. We're like in a little echo chamber. But for those outside, like I think about my family, blue collar, they care about this issue. They didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to talk about it till I started working at TASA. I've been here for 20 years, so I should know how to talk about it now. But that's what to me was so profound and important about the Speak Up, Speak Out. So we had the first campaign, and they're going to talk about that here in a second. And then we did another iteration of the campaign. And I saw, because I was at TASA that whole time, and I kind of saw a little bit of opening up of the issue. And people talking about that issue. And then we had the Lavinia Masters Act that came after that. And I think that opened up for TASA and for advocates and for survivors to be able to go to the Capitol and talk to the ledge and talk about this issue, because the ledge had heard about it through the Speak Up, Speak Out campaign on the billboards that were everywhere. So I just wanted to share that and thank them again. And now we want to hear from them. I'm done talking. So, all right, first, I'm going to give them each a chance to introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about, about yourself and how you came to know who TASA was and being involved in the campaign. And we'll start with Gina. Are you okay with starting? Okay.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone here. I feel very loved and supported, and I know this cannot be an easy job, no matter what facet you're working in, and I really honor and appreciate your effort. Please know that it does matter as we're all connected. And I wound up being pretty public about what happened to me from the get-go. This was a stranger rape, which in some ways I think took some of the stigma away that many survivors feel. The man who raped me was a local DJ and in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and had basically been raping women on his way to the morning show. And he was a multiple offender, and he was eventually caught. The first trial they held, many people in his community supported him, and I really feel for that first survivor being a witness to that trial, but he was convicted. And then my case came up for trial, and he was convicted on that case also. I was able to save, he actually forced me to perform oral sex as the last act of raping me, and I saved his semen in my mouth and spit it into a plastic baggie and handed it to the police, and he was convicted on that DNA evidence. I'm actually known as the bag girl in the Dallas County court system. And there was a young woman who was covering the trial, and I allowed her to use my face and my name in the local newspaper, the Dallas Morning News, for two reasons. The first was, when a rape occurs, it doesn't just happen, like this didn't just happen to me. It happened to my family. It happened to my sisters, my mother, my friends, my colleagues. We are all connected. And when someone, anyone, man, woman, child is raped, it affects all of us because we are a community. And so, so oftentimes it gets reported a Dallas woman or a Dallas man was raped. And it's very easy for all of us to just disconnect from that. And like, oh, that's not me, or some nameless, faceless person. And so that was the first reason. And the second reason was, I truly believe that any shame or embarrassment that happened belonged to the person that raped me, not to me. And I found that very empowering. I think because and somebody else wrote about the story, and that story won an award from the American Women in Journalism and got picked up on the AP wire. And like, honestly, I think that's how Tasa and I got connected. I'm like, I don't even, because it was years after I was raped in 1997. And so I was in the first round of Speak Up, Speak Out. So, we cannot begin to solve a problem until we admit that we have a problem. And people being able to come forward and being empowered to speak up and speak out begins that healing. So great job, everyone. Let's just keep going, okay?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Peter Ledbetter, and well, let's just start with, I was 17, so I was a minor when I was abducted at gunpoint. It was in the state of Florida, and so that, of course, affected my life, and the ripple effect was that I became a nurse. I became a sexual assault nurse examiner. I went back to school and I got my master's in counseling. So I am a licensed professional counselor as well. And I got my PhD in 2008, and I teach counselors. I teach graduate students at the University of Houston. And I have always been vocal. I've always put myself out there. Just like Gina, I did not want to be anonymous. And because I was a minor at the time of my assault, everything that was all over, and it made front page news. I will tell you guys this, I'm 1 in a million case. My DA at the time, I'm old, was very famous, and she threw the book at the guy. He got 9 consecutive life terms without parole.
Wow.
And I have to say that the pivotal person at that time for me was my SANE. My sexual assault nurse examiner was very patient, very kind. She explained everything to me. I wanted to be her. And when I grew up, I was her. But, the things that she said to me in that beginning as a teenager, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't deserve this. That stuck with me for all these years. And it destigmatized everything for me. I went back to school after this, the rape occurred over spring break. So I went back to school on Monday with 2 big black eyes, and everybody's like, what happened to you? Oh, I got raped. And they're like, huh? And it has always been like that for me. I've never had that stigma. I've never had that shame. I don't own anything that my rapist did. He owns that, and he's paying for it. And that's what I wanted my entire life, to take care of other survivors, to teach them that same thing, that this behavior does not belong to you. You are not responsible for what was done to you. yes, you're responsible for healing. And that's the other thing is I want to be a model for healing, for wholeness, not just surviving, but thriving. You can thrive from this. You can take that negative and turn it into a positive and help so many other people. And that has been God's calling in my life. And I hope that I've been effective in doing that. But TASA was an opportunity for me. I've been a member since before the Speak Up, Speak Out campaign. And when they were recruiting, I was first in line. I was like, me. And they're like, well, we're going to put your face up on a billboard. Me. And boy, when that billboard went up, my phone blew up. There's this chick on the billboard, looks just like you. Yes, that's me. How are you my friend? And you don't know I'm a survivor. What am I doing wrong? You know? And so it is my hope and my prayer that I pass that shamelessness onto other survivors. Thank you.
Hi. I have an ex who used to tell me that I'm a crybaby. So if I weep, it's this, and it's because I'm a little bit chilly. It's anything. It's not just. Yeah, thanks. I am acutely aware in every cell that I'm a man, right? Looking at him on the sea of women. Just acutely. I was 19, and I was in South Texas, and I'd gone to see a girlfriend, and it was pulled over. Back when you could still drink and drive in this state, and or the cops didn't really care. And they pulled me over in a little town called Sinton, Texas, and the cop didn't like my attitude. That's something that I've kept over the last 40 years, and pulled me over and threw me in a tank of men who had been already arrested, convicted, and sentenced, and were awaiting transfer to prison. And I just left the military, right? I was a boxer, I was young, I was strong. And that didn't matter to them. It didn't matter to anything since then. You know, I was beat down for about 5 or 6 hours and just raped repeatedly. And they finally called the jailer, they threw me outside and said, here, go on, leave. So it's not like I had anybody there to talk to. And even if I had somebody to talk to, I wouldn't have talked to them. It just wasn't going to happen. I mean, I come from a culture, from a Chicano culture, from a Mexican-American culture of men and strength. And this was something that you're supposed to die. You're supposed to fight. You're supposed to die and talk to guys sense in, and you listen to them, and it wouldn't happen to me. They would kill me. No, there's no conveying the terror that how you get paralyzed at that moment. And I don't have to tell you all that. And I never spoke about it, and I denied it. And for the next couple of weeks, I walked the streets of a little town called Beaver, where I lived, and I walked to Corpus Christi, which was 65 miles on the side of the road. And I finally picked up my father's rifle and walked into a Church's Fried Chicken there in Beaver and robbed it. And that sent me on this 30-something year odyssey of prison and out of prison. And yeah. And about 10 years ago, I was leading a healing circle. I left prison for the last time right at 14 years ago. And I would gotten into leading healing circles, community building circles, right? Based on restorative justice principles with youth who'd been arrested. And I was okay with them talking about what happened to them and their pain, but I had never really talked about mine. And I finally started talking about mine. And that, yeah, it's got me here. And I talked to Amanda and to Erica Gamble and someone else who was part of TASA, and they said, would you be willing to do this? So yeah, so I came and did this, I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago. And what it's done, it's led me to understand. I was on a stage here, I don't know, in Dallas for the national conference, and we're talking about it. And the conversation was around prevention. I work in the criminal justice arena, and I very much believe I'm a prison abolitionist. And while I still have nightmares 3 or 4 times a week about what happened to me, it's because I wrote something called Nourishing My Nightmares. And I think that to become a successful advocate, a good advocate, you have to be able to share your narrative. And to share your narrative, it means you can't become rote. You don't just spit it out. You don't just talk about it. Don't become emotionally invested. And to become emotionally invested, you have to constantly relive that. And you have to put yourself through that. But I think that, which means that I still think about it. I dream about it. And I still imagine these men I still imagine doing horrible things to them, but I would never act on it. And I would not consign them to a cage in again, because I understand that that was done to them at some point. And so how do I work in that arena? And I have become acutely aware again of, do I wait for the women to walk up first? Because men understand, men accept subconsciously the privilege of walking first, of taking the chair, of walking into a room loudly, of walking into a room hard. And that is what has led us to this, because of the privilege that we think. Because while we get raped and assaulted, not quite at the rate that y'all do, it's almost always us doing the raping. And why is that? And I've searched for that. What is it within me? What is within us, the males, that allow us to get to that? And I am bombarded with shame for being a male, and that wars with me with the not shame of being a survivor. So yeah, I'm not eloquent. I'm not trying to be eloquent. I'm just trying to tell you all thank you. I'm sorry for what we've done to y'all.
Good morning. I done got comfortable, so I'm gonna stay this way. I am Lavinia Masters, the big mouth of the group. First, I want to thank everyone that came out that works in this industry, that see the importance of fighting for survivors, that see the importance of giving us our lives back, that see the importance of just being who you are and knowing that our lives matter, that you should prioritize us, that you slay sexual violence. You guys are amazing. I want to thank TASA for giving us this safe space, for giving us this opportunity, for giving us the opportunity just to be who we are unapologetically. And I want to thank Jorge for being the person that he is. Jorge does something that most men will not do. They will speak their truth. They will tell the things that happen to them, no matter how damnable it may be, no matter how embarrassing. We're not here to emasculate him or any kind of way, but it means the world to me because so many men suffer in silence and still won't speak about it. And the domino effect that it has, and then how they treat women eventually or treat others because of that unfinished or unhealthy pain or trauma that they endured. So I thank Jorge for his courage and his bravery and for sharing with us and sitting among us today. That means the world to me. Yeah, I'm a boss lady, so yeah, I take over the microphone. But anyway, my story is this. I was a little girl in the West Dallas area at the age of 13 years old. And we had just relocated from Houston back to Dallas, and we were living with relatives. They had a 2-story project. Yes, projects came in 2 stories. And we were downstairs as the children and the adults were upstairs. And as we were sleeping downstairs, back in the day, I never thought I'd be that person to say back in the day. That means I'm getting old. But back in the day when TV went off, you had the fuzz. You know, that means time to go to bed. Ain't nothing else on TV. Ain't no BET all night. Ain't all that. It's go to bed. So I was sleeping on the couch that night. And as I was sleeping, my siblings and a couple of my cousins were on the floor. And as I was awoken, proper English is out the window today. But as I was awakened, I remember looking at the fuzz on the TV because there was pressure on my neck and my legs were being spread apart. And I'm sorry, if you're triggered, we have safe rooms and all of that good stuff, but you have to be like Jorge said, you have to relive it and because you remember it and you have to tell it like it is. And sometimes people don't understand how much trauma you have endured unless they know the entire truth of what you've been through. So I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. That was my disclosure. Anyway, so after that happened, after I was laying there as he was spreading my legs apart and pushing this pressure in my throat, I opened my eyes to realize that someone was on top of me that I didn't know. I realized that it was a knife that he was pressing in my throat, and he was trying to remove my underwear. And I didn't know what was going on, what was happening. I'm 13 years old. I'm like flipping out, like, who is this man? There was a stench about him. And to this day, I cannot do funky smells. I can't say it any nicer. I can't, smells will, it's like a trigger. If you stink, I'm like, please, here's some deodorant and soap and water. I can't, and I'm not trying to be funny, but it still does something to me because it was so repulsive. This man entered through that downstairs window and took full advantage of me as a child. We engaged in a conversation as he was raping me because I think he realized that I had never been touched. And he asked me the question, he goes, how old are you? And I'm thinking, because at 13, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm a teenager now. I'm gonna get to do all of this. I said 12. I said, that will deter him. And all he said was, damn. And he continued to do what he did to me. I don't know how long this act lasted. It seemed like forever. It could have been 20 minutes. It could have been an hour. I don't know. But once he finished raping me, we went into our conversation. He put me face down in the couch. I didn't know if my siblings were still alive because he told me if I called the police or said anything or screamed that he was going to kill one of the kids on the floor. So obviously he knew they were there. I also remember part of the conversation, I told him to leave because my stepfather, and you guys got to meet my stepfather. He's still alive. My mom is dead and gone, but that old man, bless his heart. Anyway, I said, he's going to come down with his big gun and he's going to shoot you. And he told me, he said, oh yeah, if he does, I have a 45 and I'll take care of him. So my heart just sank. Here I am, hopeless, traumatized, in pain, body being ripped apart, him roughing me up, snatching me around. And I'm thinking my entire family has to be dead because I'm whimpering because he's telling me to shut up, and I'm peeking through my eyes as I'm crying because I'm getting a visual of this buck-eyed, stinky man on top of me. All of this happened. Finally, as I went face down, I heard him going through the kitchen. And that, for some reason, that gets me still today. He came through that front window and he went out that back door like he paid rent in that place. I'm like, the audacity of these monsters and the things they do to people and the acts. And it's just the process when I process that. But anyway, I digress. He went out the back, well, he was in the kitchen for a minute. And this is the other part. And we learned later that he made him a sandwich. He made him a sandwich. Okay. I'm going too far. So he made the sandwich and he went out the back door because I was wondering, what is he doing in that kitchen for all that time? I heard stuff moving around. And when the back door closed, I laid there for a few moments more because I didn't know if it was a setup, if he had let other people in, because I'm like, my family, you know how Black folks is. It's not just 2 people, 3 people in the house when we all come together. There may be about 10 of us up in that camp. So I'm like, did he kill my entire family? Nobody's hearing anything. What is going on? So finally that calm came back over me that night before I went to bed. And all I heard was the fuzz once again on the TV. And I shot upstairs and I screamed, mama, mama, somebody just raped me. My mama was coming halfway down, like she heard the scream, because I started screaming before I hit the stairs, and she was coming out in a frantic. My story, that was not, even though that was traumatizing, that happened at that moment. That same night, I was re-traumatized by the Dallas Police Department. They're my friends now. Not all of them, but they're my friends now. Because the 2 cops they sent out when they finally got there, they asked me 3 questions that's etched in my brain today. And this is one of the reasons why I fight the way I fight. They asked me, are you sure that was not your boyfriend? Are you sure you did not let him in that window? And are you sure you're not having sex and you don't want your mama to know? That's what I wanted to say. But my mama probably would have jumped on me because I couldn't cuss back then. I cuss now, but I couldn't cuss then. And I couldn't believe, I couldn't believe that. I didn't understand what was happening. I'm like, I'm raped. My clothes are torn off of me. I'm bleeding. I got a scar, a smile cut in my neck. And you're asking me what? And you guys wonder why I am with police officers. I'm not nasty like I used to be, but I'm pretty aggressive when it comes to training them and how to deal with victims. I went to Parkland Hospital. That was another trauma area for me, and they've gotten better. And this is why I do the work I do. They had me on a gurney outside in the hallway the entire time. People walking by, looking, I'm 13 years old. I don't know what's going on. This was the most horrific experience I've ever experienced in my life. I wouldn't even wish it on my rapist, and I despise that monster of all the things I went through that night. And that was traumatizing. I was angry. I was bitter. I was mad. You think they called me little Scrappy for a reason then. I was big Scrappy now. I'm like, this will not end this way. I had a personal vendetta. My vendetta was to kill every man that walked this earth. And that's how I felt, because I didn't know what happened to me. And then I started going through my healing phases, because I realized I done got married at 19. I'm brought a child into this world. I can't be this angry all the time. So I went through my healing processes, and it was lonely. It was painful. It was hurtful, because I didn't know that they had counselors. You know, they didn't tell Black families about counseling, you know, and our mental health issues that we didn't know how to deal with, we handled it with our faith. So I went through that process, and then I learned as I moved on up to 2004, that they were not even looking for my perpetrator. You went through all of this. You did this entire SANE exam. You poked, you probed. You know what happened to me that night at 13 years old, and you put my evidence on the shelf. You said my evidence. Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? But then I wasn't the only person. They said it so like, oh, Lavinia, there's about 20,000 in the state of Texas. Are you freaking kidding me? Do you know what these victims and survivors had to endure? And you have our evidence sitting on the shelf. Oh, Lavinia, there's about 500,000 nationwide. Okay, what planet am I on right now? So I knew then, okay, Lord, I hear you. I can't blow the world up, but I can do something else. And so that's how I got my superpowers at that moment in time. I knew I had to make a change. And as I got to the point of learning about the rape kit backlog, and Tasa reached out to me, because when my case was solved finally in 2005, I went haywire. Media was contacting me, and I was everywhere. I was writing letters to the president. I was writing letters to my Congress. I was knocking on their doors. I was like, this is gonna stop. This has to stop, because I learned I missed 2 statute of limitations. There was absolutely nothing I can do for myself. I said, but these other victims will not go through what I went through. They will not live that trauma and then turn around and be re-traumatized by a jacked up system, because we're too lazy, we're too negligent, we don't consider others, we make these promises, we take these oaths, and we don't stand by them. Not on my watch, not on my watch. It's not gonna happen. And yet, and I know people say, well, you're just this. No, I have a voice, you have a voice. Collectively, we make these changes. Good, the marches are good, but we gotta have some action behind those marches. We gotta think things through, and how we're gonna make the changes that need to be changed, how we're gonna do the things that need to be done. We've lived these experiences. We know how horrific they are. We can go and we can sit in those council seats. We can run for presidents. I won't do politics with y'all. I promise you, you don't want me. But anyway, we can do these things. This is why our voices are so important. This is why the Speak Up, Speak Out campaign was so important to me. When they came, the Dallas Police Department told me what Tasa was doing with this, and they said, Lavinia, we think you will be great. And I'm like, okay, fine, that's perfect, because these guys are gonna learn about me. They're gonna learn about these victims. They're gonna respect us. We're not just something we can put on a shelf and walk away from, as if nothing ever happened to us. Don't tell me it's gonna be okay and you haven't walked in my shoes, you haven't lived my experiences, you haven't had those nightmares, you haven't cried, you haven't tried to kill yourself, you haven't done all this. Don't tell me it's gonna be okay. We're gonna talk about these things. So Speak Up, Speak Out was amazing because I didn't see the billboards, I got the photos, but people would call me and I think they ran a few commercials, and when they called me, it opened up doors for me to talk about this and talk about those things that we kept as taboo, and it was quiet. And you don't talk about rape. And what goes on in this house stays in this house. As Black families, we got that bad. We better cut that out. We're messing our kids up. But we had that bad. We don't talk about it. You're gonna be okay. No, you create bigger issues with our mental health and how we see things and how we deal with people. And it's so much more, but I'm thankful to be here now. I'm thankful to be in this space now because this big mouth and this aggressive attitude and this compassion that I have for others and for myself, and loving myself enough to know that I'm worthy to be loved. I'm worthy to be here. I'm worthy to have protection. I'm worthy enough. And so are you. And that's who I am. And that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Hey Maggie, I was just told that we're doing translations. So if y'all could put the mic to your closer to you. Sorry about that. I didn't want to interrupt you. You were going. I was like, oh, that's not a roll. So just from now.
I want to be your best friend. And I think I, along with everybody else in this room, is like super jazzed up and we're like ready to go. Like I'm ready to go. I got to refocus myself. So the way I was involved with this campaign, I finished my freshman year of college, went on a vacation with my family, and wanted attention from boys and wanted to have a vacation experience and to do all of the crazy things in my head that I wanted to do. And I watched this man make my drink because I had it in my head that that's how you stay safe. And unfortunately, that did not keep me safe. Thank you. When I got back home, I walked into my apartment that I was living with my sister at the time, and I said, she was like, "How was your vacation?" And I'm like, "Hey, it was really great. I think I may have slept with someone last night. I don't remember anything." And she was like, "You think you may have slept with someone last night? What?" And I was like, "Okay, never mind. Can't talk about that. Nope, I don't know how to deal with this situation, and I'm just not going to say anything. Thanks, bye." And I just went with that. That was my way of dealing with it. I didn't deal with it. And then about a month later, I took Benadryl for a cold, and I realized that I couldn't not face it. And the only person I had ever met who I knew had talked about rape and sexual assault was this young professor who was teaching an adjunct course that all the freshmen had to go through, where you learn how to keep yourself safe and how to get to class and how to take notes. And there was a module in, that 1 hour credit class about sexual assault. And she told us her story. And I am an outward processor. I talk things out. And sometimes I'll call a friend and just be like, "I need to just tell you this just so that like it's real in my head. This just happened." You don't have to say anything, just be a brick wall. And so that's what I did. I called my friends after I had this Benadryl experience, and they were like, "Wow, that seems important. I don't know what to say to you." And it just went nowhere.
But I thought back to that woman and I found her in the library on my college campus. And I just walked up to her and I was like, hey, you remember that thing you talked to us about? I think something like that happened to me. And she was like, we're walking right now. Right now, I'm taking your hand. We're walking to the counseling center right now. And I didn't even know there was a counseling center. And I went to the counseling center. And to be honest, they were kind of terrible, but they did connect me with the Hayes Caldwell Crisis Center. And that is where I really found my healing process. That's where I got my start. And I think, all the things that I was thinking about myself, about taking the drink, about wanting attention from boys, about being away from home, all those things I was telling myself, I think is what made my story relatable. But the only reason that I could talk about it was because of people like you. So I don't think I'm going to get this opportunity again. So I would like to read something. Thank you. I have a family, I have a life, I have a career. I don't think about this every day. I'm not on a speaker circuit, and I have what I would describe as a beautiful life with my husband, who I can love and be intimate with and not have issues there. And I'm not sure how often you see survivors who aren't in the field and who are willing to just talk openly about all of this. I can only speak from my own experiences, but I guarantee I am not unique regarding the positive impact that your work has had on me in my life. Ongoing impact right now on my life. I received so much support. I was clued into resources that I never knew existed. Spoke with counselors who asked questions I never would have thought to ask myself. Gained access to other survivors who echoed my symptoms and my experiences and my thoughts, and constantly had advocates constantly helping me shift my perspective and reframe my thoughts from self-blame, self-doubt, and assumptions that of just insufficiency and insignificance to validation, normalization, and self-assuredness. While you and all those that helped me couldn't give me a sense of forever safety, you taught me that throughout life, I can rely on my internal resources and that I can seek out external resources that just might exist. And that for every choice that someone makes that's damaging, there are millions of choices that people are making that are beneficial, whether they're curative, preventative, or just plain kind and compassionate. Your work has allowed me to live a life that I can feel good about and given me a model to help other people do the same thing. Thank you. I want that applause to go right back to you and helping me raise two strong women over there. And the way I got connected to the campaign was because during my counseling, I got connected to a support group, and in the support group, they had just made an announcement that TASA was looking for survivors. I guess the message went out to probably all the rape crisis centers across the state. And so the leader just said it, and I didn't think anything of it. It was just an announcement that they say at the beginning of class that you kind of ignore and walk away. And then maybe, I don't know, a month later or something, the facilitator of the group mentioned it again. And everybody went around the room just saying what a terrible idea that would be. Sorry, I don't think I've ever said that. And then at the end of the group, the facilitator pulled me aside and said, I just really think that like people would relate to your story. And I think that it's something that happens a lot. And I just think you should look into it. And so I got connected. And then I decided to do it, not because I was brave, not because I was courageous, not because I was fighting a good fight, but because they told me that I would be able to talk to other college kids about it. And I knew that they might be like me and they might not have ever had anyone say anything to them about it. And then maybe I could be that person for them, like my professor was for me. And it was glorious. It was really hard. I don't know that I did that great of a job at it, but it was meaningful, very meaningful to my life. So thank you.
Ooh, everybody, I'm just gonna take a breath. That was a lot. That was beautiful. And when I think about TASA's 40 years of existence and all the work that we do, listening to everybody on the stage and what you all just shared just really validates and burns the fuel in us to keep going, to keep fighting, so that you all have a place to go to. And so we're very thankful that in our state, we have very strong sexual assault programs that are out there. And we're trying to get more and culturally specific because there are survivors of all walks of life that have different ways of healing. And we want to make sure that those are all available. So thank you all so much for sharing that. That makes me want to fight harder and to keep this going. The next question is, do you all feel that this Speak Up, Speak Out campaign in your respective, we had the first iteration, 20 years ago, and then about 2016 or 2017, we had the second. Have you all seen like the needle move on how we in Texas talk about sexual assault or even respond to sexual assault? I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on that. We can start here and go that way if you'd like.
I'm an optimist. What I feel like is happening, not just in Texas, but in the country and even in the world, is what I call the rise of feminine energy. And by feminine energy, I don't necessarily mean women, because women, men, non-binary, we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. And I feel like for a long time, masculine energy has been sort of ruling humanity. And the conflict, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Speak Up, Speak Out, Me Too movement, we've obviously poked a hornet's nest and the bees are buzzing and they're stinging. And I take this as evidence of forward movement because I am an optimist. But when things are about to shift and change, whatever was the old way of doing things comes up and rears its ugly head because it knows its days are numbered. And I really do truly believe that we are moving forward, although sometimes, boy, that gets challenged. It really does. It seems like one step forward, two steps back. And right now, I feel like the conflict and the chaos that we're feeling is the rise of feminine energy. It is the rise of compassion. It is the rise of understanding and love and inclusivity. And anyone that isn't on board with that is basically creating their own misery and will continue to do so. I don't know if rape or sexual assault will ever be truly eliminated from humanity, but I do feel like we are making progress. It feels very slow sometimes, but I see it, you guys. And Me Too, would that have been possible 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Me Too movement, Speak Up, Speak Out. Every time we talk about this, every time we bring it out into the light, we all move forward. as human beings, because we're not going backward, we are moving forward.
I also sit on the governor's survivor advisory board for the sexual assault task force. And so I have a unique perspective on being able to see some of the changes in legislation before they become public. I've also had my own experience of going up to Austin and testifying and trying to get laws changed successfully. Just like Lavinia, who is my inspiration. She gives me courage to do those things. And so what I've seen change in the laws gives me hope. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Gina. Silence perpetuates the violence. We have to quit being silent about this. 1 out of 3 women is raped in her lifetime. I need to hear some voices up in here. You know, some of the laws that have changed, like last year, they finally passed a law that said police officers cannot have sexual relations with their people in custody. The hell? Like that wasn't illegal before? Are you kidding me? You know, my fellow survivors, I'm also a survivor of trafficking. That was part of my healing process. I also got trafficked later in life after my assault because I was vulnerable. And to me, trafficking is being raped 20 times a day and you don't even get the money. But we, my friend Rachel is in the audience. We went up to Austin last year and passed the SMART Act, which increased the age from 18 to 21 to be able to work and be an employee in a sexually oriented business. Again, I'm like, the hell? How is that not already a law? 21 to drink, but you can be 18 and be naked on the stage. Okay. You know, and it's not that, you know, 18 is not the adult age. And the problem is the 13-year-olds on the stage pretending that they're 18 and being raped and being exploited. So those laws have given me, the changes in those laws have given me hope. Yes, I think that the more that we speak up and speak out, the more that we decrease the stigma, the more that we move forward, the more that we make changes, the more that we make society a safer place for all people, not just women. There are trans people being murdered, and that's got to stop. But we've got to speak up. Silence perpetuates the violence, and the more we loud, y'all, the happier I am.
I think we could answer that question somewhat by giving a shout out to the twins in pink that were just here walking around. That may or may not have a relationship with someone up here on the stage. I think whatever family had the courage to not say, you know what, we're gonna take our children and leave them in a hotel room or find babysitters, but we're gonna have conversations with, in whatever way that these little tiny human beings can understand, and we're gonna take them in this room with a bunch of people, and this is why we're doing that. And then maybe I'm assuming too much, but it kind of made me feel good to see that people have the courage to bring their children into spaces like this. So thank you for having done that. I have no idea if TASA or this movement has moved, or what is the impetus, if there is an impetus, if there is a change in how people are addressing sexual assault or rape or abuse or whatever it is. I come at this again from a criminal justice standpoint. And I have seen in the last few years a willingness to not talk about, to talk more about the consequences that arise from relying on the paradigm of punishment, right? And if I would have wished, and if I would have advocated for going back and finding these individuals who did this to me and finding a tree to hang them from and saying, no, 30 years is not enough, I want to give them 40 years. No, 40 years is not enough, I want to give them 60 years. And I think I would have been perpetuating that cycle. And I've seen there are more people willing to not do that, to not go down that path, to not go down that road. To say, okay, let's at least have the conversation. Let's open the door to the fact that what the policies that we have relied on, speaking only about prevention and not talking about community-based services, offering community-based services to individuals who may be at the age of 13 or at the age of 8 or at the age of 3 or whatever. This might happen to them, right? And I know that when I have those conversations with folks, inevitably I'm talking, or people tell me, well, you wouldn't speak, you know, like this, you wouldn't talk like this if it happened to you. Well, it happened to me. So let's, you know, so let's take that conversation down another path. So yeah, again, I cannot speak to whether or not this, or the fact that y'all have the courage to sit here in a room and maybe go out into other places and have these conversations has contributed to this society that is so bound up in violence and revenge and retribution and punishment and whatever biblical principles we have decided to trot out today, think fit whatever situation. But I do think that forgiveness and the idea that this is not something that men are born with, this is something that they are taught. It's a privilege that is instilled into them from the time that they come out of the womb. That if we stop doing that, that perhaps we can make a change. And I think that, yeah, I do think that we're going down that path now.
Okay, so is our mic working? Can you hear me? Okay. So do I think the Speak Up, Speak Out change has made a change or scratch in Texas? The Lavinia Masters Act 2019. Yes, I do believe, I believe that's part of the evolution of the Speak Out, Speak Up, Speak Out in Texas. I believe it's part of people seeing in Texas that we are doing something for survivors of sexual violence in the state of Texas, and we mean business. And just when you think nothing is happening, you have more laws, you have more movements, you have more transformations that's happening in the state of Texas. I remember telling Tasa years ago, I said, I've been to Austin so many times testifying on bills for survivors of rape that y'all need to just put me a hotel up in my name, because and I don't mind. I have been traveling these highways since 2005, back and forth, different laws. I've been to Congress. You know, I've been on the federal level task force. I've been assigned. I've been to Congress testing, and I don't mind. I want them to see how serious we are here in the state of Texas when it comes to victims of sexual assault. Not just Texas. I want them to catch the fire nationwide, worldwide, of how important it is that you continue to fight and lift the voices and elevate our healing and promote our healing and everything for survivors of sexual violence. We are like the walking dead when we remain silent. That's what I compared myself to before there was a show called The Walking Dead. I didn't know about that. But anyway, I was the walking dead. I was just a figment of life's imagination, walking through a crowd every day, wearing a mask, a facade of who I really was supposed to be, because we didn't talk about, we didn't raise awareness. Who puts billboards up of an individual that been raped? Texas did. We did that. And yes, I was up there. I said, I was raped. I'm not ashamed. Like she said, that's what I said. Shame on that rapist. I'll never forget Ed Lavendera for CNN. I'm be quiet because y'all not get hyped. So Ed Lavendera from CNN, he said, Levin, I asked him, I said, when I first, because media was like eating me up. And I said, why? Can I ask you a question? And he said, yeah, Lavinia. I said, what? Why y'all want all this attention from me now? Y'all, I was nobody when I was 13, came to my rescue. Now every media want to fly me here, fly me there. What's going on? I'm still that little black girl from the projects. Why I'm special now? He said, Lavinia, are you kidding me? He said, you are fierce. He said, you show your face, you show your name, you be on TV talking trash. He said, we love that. I said, oh, well, keep them coming in, because that's who I am now. I mean business about what I do, and I love that about it, because I want you to know that's how we are now as survivors. So yes, I feel this campaign made a big impact in the state of Texas, and it evolved into things like the Lavinia Masters Act and other things that happened over the years. And there's more to come, greater to come. So, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And I'm still proud to be a Texan now.
Move the needle's always moving. The needle is always moving. I don't necessarily think it's like from empty to full. I think it's kind of maybe more like one of those heart monitor things. Like the needle's always moving. And I think I would love for all of us to take credit for, you know, changing the world, and our Speak Up, Speak Out campaign like allowed Me Too to happen. I would love that. I would love that. I think it was probably you know, a help. I think it was a help. I also think that it's not a linear, right? It goes a step forward, a step back, and I'm not 18 anymore, like Rose. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm actually pretty old. And in that time, you know, I went to law school. I've tried to unlearn a lot of things that I grew up with in Northeast Texas, not seeing the air that I was breathing. And I think that sexual violence is the intersection of a lot of things, like, you know, the objectification of women, glorification of violence, putting profits over people, unequal bargaining power, LGBTQ plus oppression, housing, criminal justice issues. I think that there's so many things that kind of can contribute to sexual violence in our culture. And while I can't fix all those things, I can use my voice and say what happened to me. And I don't know that it's going to move it forward, but I know that if we don't speak up and speak out, it will move backward. And we can never, ever, ever, ever take for granted the rights, the privileges, the freedoms, the protections that we have, because there are constantly other people that may want to take those away. I mean, in the past decade, I've seen the bills proposed that would, you know, I don't know. There's wonderful bills proposed on your side, but I think that maybe I wouldn't be that surprised if people were like, oh, you know, I don't know, in random state, Nevada has proposed a bill that now women have to have an escort when leaving the house. You know, I'd be like, oh yeah, really? I hope that doesn't pass. I mean, but I don't know that I'd be like, oh, it just seems like there is more vocal, maybe they're a minority viewpoint, maybe, I hope, but there seem to be quite vocal in trying to take away women's rights. And I think back to history of, you know, feminists gathering in living rooms, you know, hey, what is happening to you? What's happening to you? Oh, yes, my husband beats me daily. Oh, mine does too. And then, oh gosh, we need to do something about that. And reaching out to women of color, you know, in our history who have sort of led the charge of, hey, we know what it's like to be horribly oppressed, and yeah, we'll help lead the way for you. And I mean, I think if we look, I'm rambling, sorry. But I think if we look historically over time, we will see probably great progress followed by movement in the opposite direction and less freedom for women and less protections for us, and not just women, but men and non-binary folks as well. And I think that Speak Up, Speak Out is just crucial to making sure we don't go back the other way.
Okay, y'all. So one last thing before we close out and let everyone go to their workshops. would you, whoever's willing, we can go one by one, or if you're like, I'm done talking, you can be done talking, but we would love to hear just words of wisdom or encouragement or support that you want to share that's on your heart for each other or for those of us in the room who are feeling a little depleted, feeling a little like, wow, this is a lot happening right now. Yes, we would love to, if you have it in your heart to do that, I'd love to give you an opportunity to close us out by giving us words of whatever it is, wisdom, encouragement, or caution, whatever you prefer.
I'd just like to know if anybody has any questions for the panel here. Is there anything you'd like to know or understand or? Oh, so y'all got it figured out then. Awesome. Awesome. Good job, everyone. Yeah. While I have a group of people at my disposal, if you guys would indulge me, I'd like to send out a visualization of love, if you guys are open to that. We can close our eyes for about 30 seconds. And let's just picture this, because I really, truly believe in the collective and the power of intent and the power of loving energy. So if you guys will indulge me, close your eyes for just a minute. And let's just picture pink light. I'm using pink to represent love and the feminine. And let's just send out love to ourselves first and foremost. Let's cover ourselves in love, cover ourselves in pink light. Now let's move that out to this room, and to move that out to the city of Houston, to move that out to the state of Texas, the country of the United States, and out to the world. And by this, keep that love with you today and for always, and remember that. And whenever you feel down, just remember that light, because it's going to take all of us to move this, and it's going to take love. And I believe that we can do that. Thank you.
I'm gonna stand up and close out for myself. First, I want to say once again, thank you, everyone that works in the field of fighting this fight. It's a fight that's worth fighting for. I was worth fighting for. I don't care my age, my color, my gender. We're worth fighting for. We are a human race. We were here to take care of one another, to love one another, to have compassion for one another. That's how you make this place a better place that we live in. And if I can say anything else, like she was talking about the light and the darkness, we are a force. We all have a marvelous light within us. And darkness tries to overtake us. Darkness tries to take over this world. No, we will never stop evil. We will never stop the hearts of man that figure they can take advantage of others, that can rape us, that can, try to dehumanize us, whatever they do. But we have a light. We have to understand the power of that light that's within each and every one of us. And with this light, we can outshine the darkness. I don't care how dark it gets in here. If a little light comes on, you're going to see that light. With all of our lights together, we can do a great thing and a great impact in this world. I'm a little person. Well, not in size, but I'm just saying, I'm a little person. And the light that I have, I feel that my light shines so bright that if I connect with others, that we're going to make a change that needs to be changed in this world. We're not just going to make noise. We're going to make a change. And that's how important you are. I can't do the things that you do. I don't have the voices that you have. I may talk big, I may talk tough, but you may speak in another language that needs to be said or needs to be done in the work that we do. And it's so important that we keep fighting this fight with this light that we have. We have to overcome this darkness. We have to make darkness realize that we are here and we're a force to be reckoned with. We're going to change the lives of every victim of sexual violence. We may not stop it, but I promise you, you're going to have to face us in the light that we shine against you. You're going to have to face us if it's jail, if it's prison, if it's the grave. I'm telling you, sometimes we got to move it out the way. We have to move all of the darkness out the way, but there has to be a change, and you guys are that change. And I admire you, I honor you, I respect you. The fight that you have, you give. And I know sometimes these jobs don't pay what they should pay for what you do. I understand that. That's why I didn't go that route. But anyway, but you have to have that compassion for us, that love for people, to say that that child, that person does not deserve to be broken. They do not deserve to be bruised. They do not deserve to live with those painful memories. They didn't ask for this. Nobody births a child into this world to be taken at the hands of someone else and destroyed and cast down and used and abused and served like hell. You don't birth your children for that, but it happens. And you decided, you took that charge and you said, I'm going to save that child. I'm going to save Lavinia. I'm going back. I'm going to change those laws. I'm going to make it better for her. She deserves to be whatever she wants to be. She dreamed of being a princess one day. And if she wants to live that life of being a princess, she can do it. And I'm going to make sure it happens. And I'm thankful for you because you all gave me my dream. I can't shine my light without you. And we all need to understand the power of our light together. Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you to every single one of you in this room. We are here because of you. We are here and healed and loudmouths for those who don't have a voice. We are that voice because we're bold enough to do it. But we wouldn't be here without every single one of you. That 17-year-old girl that was abducted, that was broken, that was tortured, every single person that I came across gave me love, gave me healing. We can't do everything, but we can do one thing. And that one thing that every single one of you does has a ripple effect. And you may not ever know the effect that you had because you threw a pebble in the pond, but it may be a tsunami on the other end. And I want to encourage you to keep throwing stones. Can't do everything, can't save everybody, but you can do that one thing. And you do that with love, and you do that with purpose. And it does make a difference because here I am, 38 years later, talking on a stage. The people that were in my life don't know I'm here, but you do. And the people that are going to be on the stage that you've helped heal, every single one of you have helped heal. You may not know them, but know that you are doing the good work. Thank you.
I said my thank you at the beginning. I'll say it again. I also want to say that we're just five. I think, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're just five. But like, the Hayes Caldwell Crisis Center, probably for very good reasons, has never emailed me and said, you used to take part in our services. But I kind of wish that there was a way just to put a call out to all survivors, because I guarantee that for my one self, there's thousands of other individuals that the Hayes Caldwell Crisis Center has saved and allowed to live fulfilling lives. And I wish there was a way for you to get all of that reflected back onto you. And I hope someday we'll figure out a way to do that. You're just wonderful. Thank you.
I want to make this a quick analogy. I kind of struggle with the concept of expunction. Because we live in a world where anything is going to be available to anybody at any time. And I have been convicted multiple times of burglary and robbery. And I would rather work toward a world where that doesn't matter. Or what I have done in my past, what I have been guilty of doing is maybe not atoned for, but I have truly sought redemption, where I've showed remorse and sought redemption. And you've allowed me back into your world. I don't want to live in a world where I have to believe in the inevitability of violence and rape. I don't want to live in that world. As a man, I realize that I do not have the 24/7, 365-day awareness that a woman has every time she walks down a room, out a door, in a garage, whatever. I would hope that y'all would want to work toward a world where you don't accept the inevitability of violence, where the focus is not on how are we preventing, what do I have to do to be aware of what a man is going to do to me, but how do I live in a world, how do I move toward a world where that is no longer anything that I have to fear? And that's the world that I'm trying to live in. That's the world that I'm trying to create. So again, I am aware of who I am and the way I walk and the way I talk. And I want to thank you all for being willing to at least listen to me and accept me. And I'm not going to say that I'm healed. I'm never going to be healed. I can't move. I can't accept healing. Not while I live in this world. But anyway, thank you.
All right, thank y'all. So is there anyone else? I want to not leave anybody out if you're, okay. All right, thank y'all so much. This has been very refreshing for me personally, and I'm sure that it's helped others in the room as well. So, and I want to thank Laura for your idea to do this. I know when it came up and she was like, 20 years, we've got to, so thank you, Laura, for this. This is a beautiful, yes, this is a beautiful idea.
When I first had the idea was actually like 5 years ago when I came on and did contract work. And I said, the 20-year anniversary is coming up. Let's do a panel. Let's get the original 6 survivors up, or as many as we can, because there were 6. And there were 6 women. One was Latina, Eunice. Couldn't find her. I tried, Eunice. And my coworker Maya said, you need to have some representation up there. And immediately, of course, Lavinia, Jorge, I had not met Jorge before last night. But I thought, but we can talk about how the movement has changed, but we should maybe just try to get those original 6. And Maya was like, no. We need representation. I said, okay, yeah. And I am just sitting here and just want to thank Maya because this panel is exactly what it should have been. It came to life exactly as it should have, despite what I had envisioned, which was not this. And I'm so glad that someone said, no, it's a good idea, but you've got to take it further. And that's part of my own personal journey with TASA and in life, unlearning, opening up to, I was not opposed to anyone else being up here, but I did push back at first and say, but there has been so much progress in the movement, but certainly with the original 6, I was just hung up on the 20-year anniversary. So, let's talk about how the movement has changed. And again, Maya was like, no, show how the movement has changed. And it has, and it is. And, white girls like me are saying, oh yeah, absolutely. So I just think it's incredible. I am going to have the worst headache today from crying for the last 90 minutes. But thank you all so much for being here. Shout out to Maya for saying, no, Laura, good idea, but not enough. And that kind of pushback, that is, I heard Gina talk about the feminine energy and how when you are on the precipice, which I very much think we are, the people who are going to be hurt, the people in power push back. And Maggie then talked about, and all of you talked about, these horrific new laws for every Lavinia Masters Act. There is the overturning of, I don't want to get political here, but we can get political later. I'm terrified about where we are headed. I am terrified. I am not an optimist. I'm angry. My mother tells me all the time, you're so angry. Why are you so angry all the time? Why so, I'm like, why aren't you angry? Why aren't you angry? And so I hear what you're both saying, and you're both right. You're all right. But I'm picking on these two because you both kind of touched on we're headed somewhere. We are on the precipice, and the people in power are clinging on tightly. The bees are stinging, and really bad shit is going down right now. It is, but I think it's happening because we are on that verge, and we are either going to find our way forward or go back. And going back is terrifying to me. And I don't think, I want to answer that question real quick about that needle moving, because when I look at numbers, I'm not an optimist. And when I was putting together my little intro, and I've said this to Rose so many times, the numbers aren't changing. 87%, 90% of rape goes unreported. Less than 1% of perpetrators end up convicted. Those numbers aren't changing. And then you have to ask, so how is the needle moving? It's not moving. Those numbers aren't changing, but something is changing. Things are changing, but I'm a little scared. And they're gonna have to get worse before they get better, but how much worse can it possibly get? How much?
Don't speak that.
So thank you all for being here. Again, coworker shout out for love that you all were here. I hate that it wasn't my idea, but I'm so glad. I'm so glad it happened. So thank you.
And going back is not, it's not an option. It's not, we're not going to do that. So Laura, don't worry. We're not going to go back. We may have to push hard, and we may get swayed, but we are not going back. We're going to keep pushing. All of us are going to keep pushing forward. And I think also the numbers might not have changed, but I think like what Jorge was saying was they're creating this outlook of a community and what that means, and making mistakes and how we respond to those things. I think that's happening too, and that's promising. That's not happening as fast as we'd like to, and kind of rethinking what it means to accountability, community accountability, and things like that. I see the movements in those areas, and I think they're all connected, and one day we'll see it all. But yeah, it just does feel like right now, but we're not gonna, I just wanted to reassure you, well, as much as I can, that we are not going back. We're gonna keep not easily. We're not gonna go back easily. So thank y'all so much. And really quick, one announcement.